All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 432, I think, of the Restoring Rapport podcast. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way according to God's design. My name is Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I try to equip you and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today we're going to be reviewing what seems like a TED Talk. It's going to be interesting. It's about marrying the wrong person, and the person in this video makes the claim in the title, whether or not it's clickbait, I don't know, we'll find out, that you will marry the wrong person. So I'm very curious to see what this is, because I obviously do not think I married the wrong person. I'm really happy with my wife and our decision to get married. I would have married her sooner. I tell everyone if I would have found her sooner. And so this obviously that title intrigued me, so that's why I'm reviewing it today. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
I've been asked to talk to you today about an essay that I wrote for the New York Times last year, which went under a rather dramatic heading. It was called "Why You Will Marry the Wrong Person." And perhaps we can just begin, we're among friends, by just asking how many of you in the room do feel, on balance, that you have married the wrong person? I mean, we're among friends. Any? Yeah, a lady, that couple of people, 5, 10.
Oh, gosh,
I say 30 people in the room, and so we always have to treble that. So there's a pretty hefty majority. But I'm here to give counsel and to give consolation for this situation. You know, there's a lot of anger around our love lives, privately held. But a lot of us go around feeling quite enraged, angry privately about the way that our love lives have gone. My task today is to turn that anger into sadness. If we manage to turn rage into grief, we will have made psychological progress. And this is the task today. What lies behind rage very often is an unusual quality, because we tend to think that very angry people are sort of dark and pessimistic characters. Absolutely not. Scratch the surface of any regularly angry person, and you will find a wild optimist. It is, in fact, hope that drives rage. Think of the person who screams every time they can't find their house keys or every time they get stuck in traffic. These unfortunate characters are evincing a curious but reckless faith in a world in which keys never go astray, the roads are mysteriously traffic-free. It is hope that is turbocharging their rage. So if we're to get a little bit less sad and a little less angry about our love lives, we will have to diminish some of our hopes. It's very hard to diminish hope around love because there are vast industries designed to inflate our expectations of love. There was a wonderful quote from the German philosopher Theodor Adorno, who in the 1960s said that the most dangerous man in America was Walt Disney. And the reason for his attack on Walt was because he believed that Walt was the prime agent of hope, and therefore of rage, and therefore of bitterness. And he thought that it was the task of philosophy to let us down gently, which is what I'm going to be doing today. So remember the theme of the talk: why you will marry the wrong person. There are a number of reasons why this is going to happen to you, or has maybe already in the privacy of your heart happened to you. I should say that it's not that bad. And the reason is that all of us will not manage to find the right person, but we will probably all of us manage to find a good enough person. So, and that's success, as you will come to see. One of the reasons why we're not going to be able to pull this one off as successfully as we might have hoped at the outset of probably our teenagehood when we were contemplating love, is that we are very strange. I'm very strange, and you're very strange. You don't let on, and we're not going to do anything very dangerous, but we are basically psychologically quite strange. We don't normally know very much about this strangeness. It takes us a long, long time before we're really on top of the way in which we are hard to live with. Does anyone in this room think that they're quite easy to live with, on balance? Yeah? Oh my goodness. Okay. I don't want to be rude, but please come and see me afterwards. I know that you're not easy to live with. And the reason is that you're Homo sapiens, and therefore you are not easy to live with. No one is. But there's a wall of silence that surrounds us from a deeper acquaintance with what is actually so difficult about us. Our friends don't want to tell us why would they bother. They just want a pleasant evening out. They're not.
Okay, let me pause. Let's make a pros and cons list, and let me tell you where I think he's going with this. So I like, I like that he is removing the expectation of perfection from the marriage relationship. I don't like that he's making it seem like you cannot hit the mark, because I think you can hit the mark. Like, I think wisdom, prudence, thought, prayer, guidance, counsel from other people, especially those you trust, can really help you actually hit the mark. um, and I think you can do things that make marriage easy. Like, what's the word? All the kind of the horror stories and the things that people will tell you about, um, marriage just being hard, and they'll kind of harp on that for a long time, and then they'll sprinkle in a marriage is amazing every once in a while, but they'll mostly drudge up the feelings of anger and sadness and uncomfortable feelings that they've had while they're married. And that's how I hear most people talk about marriage, how hard it is, how hard it is. Dude, marriage is the most rewarding, amazing, and I'm going to say easy experience I've had if you make good choices in my life. Like, it is really, really, really good. And I think that it's the way God's called us as young believers to live, with reference to 1 Corinthians 7. Just like most people, I would say, aren't designed to live unmarried. And so what I do like about this is that he's making marriage out to be something that, it's not like a nirvanic enlightenment state, heaven sort of, perfect state. Like, there's going to be issues and problems. But those problems, I don't think to have any kind of degree of permanence in your life, and they don't have to last for any time at all, and they can be instantaneously solved if you make the right decisions. And like, there are annoying things, yes, but those annoying things are so small in comparison to the joys that come with marriage, that I almost don't even think of I don't think of the hard things at all. When I hear the word marriage, everybody is going to think something different because they have a different association with that word in their life. They see in that split second it takes to say that word, they see all of the people and all the marriages that they know. And we have selection bias. A lot of us have seen trash marriages that went nowhere because they were not entered into correctly, or they were not, good choices were not made after they were entered. And so, if that's you, excuse me, I had a yawn, by the way. If that's you, then when you hear that word marriage, you're gonna not think very good things when you hear that word marriage. But when I hear the word marriage, the only things I think about are good. Okay, the only things I think about are good, because so I don't like when people present marriage as like, oh, it's gonna be hard to live with somebody. Oh, you're expecting too much. Oh, marriage isn't designed to meet that need. Oh, marriage is only a small part of your life. All this, it's like, all those statements seem to be telling me the state of your marriage. Not to insult anybody, but I'm just saying, if you're not presenting marriage as a good thing, maybe you need to ask yourself, am I the best person to, or well, not the best person to, that's not what I meant. Am I is the way I'm doing marriage the only way that marriage can be done? That's what I want people to ask themselves. Is the way I'm doing marriage the only way that marriage can be done? And is the way I'm doing marriage the best way that marriage can be done? Those two questions will really wreck you, I think, before you, because if you, what's the word? When you think of the word marriage, if you're thinking of not good things, I would argue there are people out there who can, and I'm friends with some of these people, and I know some of these people, and I've listened to some of these people online. They're everywhere. Okay, there are lots of people who, when they hear the word marriage, they think only good things. Okay, this is not to say that there are only good things in marriage, but that they're the overwhelming majority. They just overwhelm all the bad things that happen in marriage. Another yawn. Wow, to the point that it's just an amazing institution and relationship that God has designed, I would argue. And to come against it in any way, I take issue with that. Not with the people personally, but just with the ideology that marriage is, somehow less than. Let's continue, though. I want to hear him further flesh out what he's saying here.
Our friends know more about us and more about our flaws, probably after a 10-minute acquaintance. A stranger will know more about your flaws than you might learn over 40 years of life on the planet.
That's true.
Our capacity...
That is actually true. I hate to pause it again so soon, but that is really true. There are things about myself that I did not know until my wife was able to point them out to me, because people are just more perceptive. And I'm remarkably, I think, learning that I'm remarkably bad at this. Like just people watching and seeing what they're good at, what they're bad at, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their personality's like, what their, habits are, I noticed that some other people that I know are just so much better at that than me. And so couple that with the fact that you can't self-reflect as somebody else, as well as somebody else can assess you. I just think marriage is a great way to, what's the word? It's a great way to get insight into another person in a way that you've never been able to before. Because I'm able to see things about my wife because I just observe her all the time, and I'm with her all the time. We spend time together all the time. So I'm able to see things about her that I normally am not able to see about other people, even if I'm trying to pay really close attention.
To intuit what is wrong with us is very weak. Our parents don't tell us very much. Why would they? They love us too much. They know. They can see, of course. I mean, they followed us from the crib. They know what's wrong with us. They're not going to tell us because they just want to be sweet. And our ex-lovers, a vital source of knowledge, they know. Absolutely, they know. But do you remember that speech that they gave? It was moving at the time when they said that they wanted a little more space and were attracted to travel and were interested in the culture of Southeast Asia. Nonsense. They thought lots of things were wrong with you, but they weren't going to be bothered to tell you. They were just out of there. Why would they bother? So this knowledge that is out there is not in you. It's out there, but it's not in you. And so therefore we progress through the world with a very low sense of what is actually wrong with us. Not least, all of us are addicts. Almost all of us are addicts. Not injecting heroin as such, but addicts in the sense, we need to redefine what addiction is. I like to define addiction not in terms of the substance you're taking. In other words, I'm a heroin addict, I'm a cocaine addict. No. Addiction is basically any pattern of behavior whereby you cannot stand to be with yourself and certain of the more uncomfortable thoughts and, more importantly, emotions that come from being on your own. And so therefore you can be addicted to almost anything so long as it keeps you away from yourself, so long as it keeps you away from tricky self-knowledge. And most of us are addicts. And thanks to all sorts of technologies and distractions, etc., we can have a good life where we will almost certainly be guaranteed not to spend any time with ourselves, except maybe for certain kind of airlines that still don't have the gadgets to distract us. But otherwise, you can be guaranteed you don't have to talk to yourself. And this is a disaster for your capacity to have a relationship with another person, because until you know yourself, you can't properly relate to another person. One of the reasons why love is so tricky for us is that it requires us to do something we really don't want to do, which is to approach another human being and say, I need you. I wouldn't really survive without you. I am vulnerable before you.
Those were some killer sentences. That's absolutely, I 100% agree with him there, in that humans are designed to need each other, to be codependent. Not codependent. Codependent is the word that counselors would use in a bad way when talking about relationships. I don't have any issues with the word codependent because I don't have a lot of experience in my life with being codependent on people, but I do have an experience with what I call being interdependent on other people. And I think that's a good thing. I think we're designed to need each other. I think we idealize and idolize independence and make it way more of a virtue than it is. I don't think it's a scriptural virtue at all. For those of you who are young believers listening to the show, instead I see a Bible where, in God we live, move, and have our being. We would not exist without our Creator. We would not exist without our parents. We would not exist without our parents' parents. There's a huge external reliance on other things in your life. You wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be able to support yourself in all likelihood without your job, which is full of other people that you need in order to turn out the product or service that you do. You wouldn't be able to get the food that you need in order to sustain your family without grocery stores and, food transportation that happens today. You probably wouldn't have been able to get your home. I mean, if you think you can go through life without people, I have no, that statement where people get that attitude of independence, where they get that attitude of I'm all I need. They get that attitude of, you know, I don't need anybody. I can just do whatever I want and live a happy life. To me, that is just such a delusion. I mean, your life right now, I don't care how independent you think you are, your life is full of reliance on other people. It is full of reliance on other people. You are a relational being, okay? Your most basic emotional needs you cannot meet by yourself. The most basic, the need for love and affection, boom, there's a problem. You can't meet that by yourself. And so when people just say that, they talk about independence, 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 all I can hear is you have trauma and people have let you down in the past, and therefore you do not want to rely on them for anything. You want to be the one to take care of yourself because you feel like you can do it better and nobody else has done it for you in the past. Which to me, I would say to that person, you don't need to run from that which you need. You need to run to people who are actually good at meeting that need. You need to actually find people in your life that are good people and not bad people. This is the classic thing of you have somebody who dates an absolute pig and then they end up, generalizing and saying that all men or women are bad, and or that I don't need marriage because why would I want that? It's nothing good. And then they go down this road of like, their experience, but your experience is not truth. Truth is the fact that you actually do need, in all likelihood, a romantic relationship with the opposite sex. Okay. And to get that, I mean, I'm not saying, like, let's reflect here. I am not undermining your experience. I know that you've had a terrible experience. I've had a terrible experience, okay? With not with my wife, but with other people before I met my wife, when I was trying to find my wife. And that, like, did you do everything right in that situation? The answer is no, okay? Did they do everything right in that situation? The answer is no. Could you pick a little bit better next time and not enter a relationship with somebody with glaring red flags? The answer is yes, okay? And so, like, I don't know, we just need a dose of humility. Like, marriage works. Sometimes our approach to it is wacky and does not work because we were being an idiot. That's my experience. Okay. And so you just need to, you control who comes into your life by, you control how much access, dangerous people have to you. And by, I would again say consulting scripture, mentors, counselors, your past experience, you can pretty well keep wolves away from getting close to you if you're actually honest to goodness, genuinely taking those four, factors into consideration when you're making your decision. Okay. And so, yeah, I just think marriage can be a good thing, and you do need people, and you don't need to let your experience determine your actions. Instead, you need to let truth decide your actions. Okay. And so let's continue to what he says.
And there's a very strong impulse in all of us to be strong and to be well defended and not to reveal our vulnerability to another person. Psychologists talk of two patterns of response that tend to crop up in people whenever there's a danger of needing to be extremely vulnerable, dangerously vulnerable, and exposed to another person. The first response is to get what psychologists call anxiously attached. This is attachment theory, some of you may know. So when you are anxiously attached to somebody, rather than saying, I need you, I depend on you, you start to get very procedural. You say, you're 10 minutes late, or I think the bin bags need to be taken out, or you start to get strict when actually what you want to do is to ask a very poignant question, do you still care about me? But we don't dare to ask that question. So instead, we get nasty, we get stiff, we get procedural. The other pattern.
But let's pause. Okay, yeah, I agree with what he said there, but the only reason you have that concern, I would argue, is if there's reason for that concern to be there. Like, guys, I've never once thought those things about my relationship with my wife. I know my wife cares about me. I know she loves me. I know that for a fact. Never in my wildest dreams have I wondered if my wife still cared about me and loved me just as much as the day we said I do. Like, never. And that's because we have the kind of relationship through consulting those four things: scripture, counselors, mentors, and our own past history and experience. We have made a relationship and chosen the kind of relationship that is easy to live in. Let me tell you something. You can have, and I've had the other kind of relationships, guys. I've had the relationships where you're constantly anxious. And my point is, usually there's a reason. There's a reason you're anxious and you're worried about something, okay? You're not worried without evidence. There's been evidence that makes you feel like your partner does not care about you. and therefore you are worried and exhibiting these unattractive traits. Okay. And the solution there is not, I would not even say it's to be vulnerable at that point, because I mean, if you say to a person that does not care about you, do you care about me? They're forced into either lying to you or telling you the truth, which is no, they don't. Okay. And I've seen so many people get in bad relationships, and I don't think vulnerability solves that. Okay. I don't think by being, I mean, think of the example of a woman who, um, is in a relationship with a dude who is not to be trusted to stick around. And she attempts to lock him into commitment with her by sleeping with him or getting a child with him. That is a perfect example of trying to solve a connection and commitment problem with added vulnerability. It does not work, okay? What you've done is you have just heaped more consequences on yourself when this person does what they were always going to do, and that is abandon you, let you down, have a lack of commitment that ends up blowing up the relationship. Okay. And if you're having worries about that with your partner, there's a reason. That's an indication that this person they are not exhibiting what you need them to exhibit to make you feel comfortable. This person is not 100% invested. All right. Because I can tell you this for a fact, because I've had those feelings. I've had those feelings with people. Is this person going to leave? Is this person really care about me? Is this person as invested in this relationship as I am? And if you're feeling that constantly, there's usually a reason. There is evidence in front of you, okay? And so I would just encourage you, this is why I'm such a huge proponent of just not entering committed relationships with people where there are these glaring issues, because they don't go away, okay? So if you see a red flag, please do not ignore it. Okay. You need it when you, I might get flack on the internet for saying this, but I think I approach dating a lot more like engagement and a lot less like an experiment or a discovery process to figure out whether or not I could live with someone forever. If I ask to date you, I have decided, okay, that's how I approached it when I was growing up. I have decided that I could live with you forever. And so I'm asking you if you have decided that as well. And if so, we can move forward towards marriage. If not, then we need to stay where we are. Okay. So, and this, I think, prevents a lot of these problems. If you're seeing issues that you would not want to live with forever, first of all, I need you to keep your eyes open and not just be led by infatuation, when selecting a mate. But once you've done that, if there are things that you see that you would not want to live with forever, I don't want you to get committed to that person until you know that you could live forever with them. All right. And yeah, this whole, I don't know. It just causes so many problems when you try to solve a wisdom problem by adding vulnerability. I don't think it works. Okay. You need to solve a lack of wisdom problem, a decision-making problem with good decisions, okay? And by making those next time, because there might be nothing you can do at this point, because that's the finality of decisions. And so let's continue.
Of behavior, which psychologists have identified, and it tends to apply to people who are in this room. In other words, A-types, very outgoing types, strivers. You become, in relationships, tell me if I'm wrong, you become what is known as avoidant, which means that when you need someone, it's precisely at that moment that you pretend you don't. When you feel most vulnerable, you say, I'm quite busy at the moment. No, I'm fine, thanks. I'm busy today. In other words, you don't reveal the need for another person, which sets them off into a chain of wondering whether you are to be trusted. And there's then a cycle of low trust. So we get into these patterns of not daring to do the thing that we really need to do, which is to say, even though I'm a grown person, maybe I've got a beard, maybe I've been alive for a long time, I'm 6'2", etc., I'm actually a small child inside, and I need you like a small child would need its parent. This is so humbling that most of us refuse to make that step and therefore refuse the challenge of love. In short, we don't know very much how to love. And it sounds very odd, because imagine if somebody said to you, look, all of us probably in this room would probably need to go to a school of love. We think, what, a school of love? Love is just an instinct. No, it's not. It's a skill, and it's a skill that needs to be learned, and it's a skill that our society refuses to consider as a skill. We are meant to always just follow our feelings. If you keep following your feelings, you will almost certainly make a big mistake in your life. What is love? Ultimately, love, I believe, is something, first of all, there's a distinction between loving and being loved. We all start off in life by knowing a lot about being loved. Being loved is the fun bit. That's when somebody brings you something on a tray and asks you how your day at school went, etc. And we grow up thinking that that is what's going to happen in an adult relationship. We can be forgiven for that. It's an understandable mistake, but it's a very tragic mistake, and it leads us not to pay attention to the other side of the equation, which is to love. And what does it really mean to love? To love, ultimately, is to have the willingness to interpret someone's, on the surface, not very appealing behavior in order to find more benevolent reasons why it may be unfolding. In other words, to love someone is to apply charity and generosity of interpretation. Most of us are in dire need of love, because actually we need to have some slack cut for us, because our behavior is often so tricky that if we don't do this, we wouldn't get through any kind of relationship. But we're not used to thinking that that is the core of what love is. The core of what love is the willingness to interpret another's behavior. What we tend to be very bad at is recognizing that anyone that we can love is going to be a perplexing mixture of the good and the bad. There's a wonderful psychoanalyst called Melanie Klein, who was active in the 50s and 60s, originally from Vienna, active in North London, studying how children learned about relationships from the parental situation. And she came up with a very fascinating analysis. She argued that when children are small, very small, they don't really realize that a parent is one character. They actually do what she calls split a parent into a good parent and a bad parent. And so this is when a baby is really at infant stage. So what you do is you split into the good mother and the bad mother. And it takes a long, long time. Melanie Klein thought it might be until you're 4, until you actually realize that the good and the bad mother are one person, and you become ambivalent. In other words, you become able to hate someone and really go off them, and at the same time also love them, and you're able not to run away from that situation. You're able to say, I love someone and hate them, and that's okay.
Something I'm finding interesting, though, like, I don't know, guys, maybe I just have a perfect wife. Okay, I'm not saying she's perfect, but I'm saying like there are things she does that are annoying. There are things she does that, are not great or whatever. But like those things are so small. Like it's like almost like when I tell somebody about marriage, I don't even want to tell them about the bad things about it, because they're so small. I feel like I would be misrepresenting marriage. Like if you ask me, like, what do you think of teaching? What do you think of teaching? Such a huge question. Like, so many things come into my mind there. But I would give you the one that was the biggest thing that came to my mind. The thought that I think captured teaching more than any of the other small things about it. I would give you the general idea, not a bunch of small details, okay? And so if you're talking about marriage and you're talking more about the arguments and the small inconveniences to your selfish nature that come from living with another person, more than you're talking about the blessings, the joys, the positive fruits, the healthy sexual fruits, the children, the emotional connection, the permanence, the commitment, the trust that comes with that commitment. If you're talking about it more than that stuff, I'm like, are you even talking about marriage? You're definitely not talking about the marriage that I have experienced. You're talking about some other kind of marriage that one has arrived at through making different choices than I have. Like my wife, and I don't say that in an arrogant way, because I know what it's like to make the bad choices too, because I've done that. Raise your hand in the room if you made stupid mistakes in relationships right here, okay? I'm just saying, my wife is literally like, you want to know like the worst thing she does? Like the worst thing she does is like, she doesn't do very many wrong things at all. My point is like, the reason I'm hesitating is I haven't asked her if I could, put this on the internet or anything. But if I were to tell you the worst thing she did, it would be so small. It's just so small that I would never when asked about marriage, present that, that statement about, one small thing she did, or about, like, she's so easy to live with. She's so easy to live with. It's so easy to do life with her. It's so easy to, and then so I find myself at this point of confusion where I'm constantly hearing people talk about how hard marriage is, but I'm not seeing the evidence of that in my own. Seth, you're just in the honeymoon phase. Okay. That's a possible theory. I could be. I'm 2.5 years in, approaching 3. Um, and I know myself well enough to know that I don't really change, and my wife doesn't really change either. So I'm a little bit more skeptical of the idea you're putting forward, that my marriage is one day going to, have gradually taken so many wrong turns that it's a miserable situation to live in. What I think is a more likely truth is that perhaps people can do marriage different ways, and some people make bad choices and some people make not bad choices, and you get different fruit from those choices. Seth, you're being arrogant. No, I'm not. I have made the bad choices already. Okay, I know what they're like. I have, seen the fruit, okay, from that, and I'm the one who made. I'm not pushing personal responsibility off on somebody else. I made those bad decisions, but my wife, my decision to marry my wife was not one of them. Okay, was not one of them. And I just have such a high view of marriage because of how awesome she is. She is absolutely amazing. Um, and so I'm always puzzled when I hear talks like this about how you're going to marry the wrong person and it's going to be difficult and you're going to have to figure all these things out and it's going to be so hard here and it's going to be so, it's like, that's not my experience, man. That's not my experience. My wife is the easiest thing about my life. She's the easiest thing about my life. She's the safest thing God has given me. She's the, what's the word? Like, there is no struggle. I mean, there are tiny things, I guess, but like, and I'm not trying to say marriage is perfect and is going to be like I don't want to misrepresent it either way. But what I'm telling you is that if you make good choices, it can be something beyond your wildest dreams good. Okay, and I don't want you to get the wrong idea about listening to stuff like this.
And Melanie Klein thought this is an immense psychological achievement when we can no longer merely divide people into absolutely brilliant, perfect, marvelous, and hateful, let me down, disappointed me. Everyone who we love is going to disappoint us. We start off with idealization, and we end up often with denigration. The person goes from being absolutely marvelous to being absolutely terrible. Maturity is the ability to see that there are no heroes or sinners really among human beings, that all of us are this wonderfully perplexing mixture of the good and the bad. And adulthood, true psychological maturity, and you may need to be 65 before it hits you, I'm not there yet, is the capacity to realize that anyone that you love is going to be this mixture of the good and the bad. So love.
No, I do think that's true. Like, I think that's what Scripture says, right? We're made in the image and likeness of God, but we're all fall short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. We all have these things about us that are very unattractive, but we also have we are also called to something higher. We're given a new name by Christ. We're a new creation. These things. It's like this mixture, and if you get if you go too far into either side of that, I feel like you misrepresent yourself. But marriage, when you talk about marriage, it can't be like when you're talking about yourself, because marriage is an institution that God made that is good. It is not good, Genesis, that man should be alone. It is not good that man should be alone. Let's make a helpmate that is suitable for him. Okay, that's something that has good things and bad things about it. That's something that is 100% good. 100% good. And so anything bad about marriage that you're experiencing, you might need to ask yourself, is the problem with marriage or is the problem with me? Okay? Because you're the one that Scripture describes as having some things about you that are not that are not quite right, that some things that need changed. Marriage is an institution that God made, and therefore it is 100% good because God himself is 100% good. And so my thoughts on what this guy is saying are mixed. I like a lot of it. I some of it I think is a little bit diagnosing the wrong problem. Like, the problem is how the decisions people are making in marriage and not marriage itself. I do like how he said that we all have these good things about us. I think that's scriptural. Like, we all have these good things about us. with reference to those verses I just gave you before, and we all have these bad things about us with reference to those verses I just gave you before. As far as the scriptural narrative, I think that's how the Bible, portrays humankind. But yeah, this is super interesting. Let's see just a few more minutes of what he has to say. I want him to get to the point he made at the beginning, which is that you're going to marry the wrong person, because that's what really hooked me. I don't know what he means by that.
It's not just admiration for strength. It is also tolerance for weakness and recognition of ambivalence. The reason why we're going to probably make some real mistakes when we choose our love partners, some of you in this room have made some stunning mistakes. Now, why is this? The reason is that we've been told that the way to find a good partner is to follow your instinct, right? Follow your heart. That's the mantra. And so we're all the time reminded that if we stop reasoning, analyzing. By the way, are there people in this room who think that you can think too much about your emotions? That sort of view, people go, yeah, you can think too much. A few people, okay, you can't think too much. You can only ever think badly. But there's no such thing as thinking too much about emotions. But the problem is we live in a romantic culture that privileges impulse. Now, when it comes to love, something tricky occurs, because you don't have to be a paid-up believer in psychotherapy or psychoanalysis to realize that the way we love as adults sits on top of our early childhood experiences. And in early childhood, the way that we learned about love was not just via experiences of tenderness and kindness and generosity. The love that we will have tasted as children will also be bound up with experiences of being let down, being humiliated, maybe being with a parent who treated us very harshly, who scolded us, who made us feel small in some way. In other words, quite a lot about our early experiences of love are bound up with various kinds of suffering. Now, something quite bad happens when we start to go out into the adult world and start to choose love partners. We think we're out to find partners who will make us happy, but we're not. We're out to find partners who will feel familiar. And that may be a very different thing, because familiarity may be bound up with particular kinds of torture. And this explains why sometimes people will say to us, look, there's a wonderful person, you should go and date them. They're good looking, they're charming, they're all sorts of things. And we go out with them and we date them. And we do recognize that they're really wonderful and amazing. But we have to confess to our partners, to our friends, that actually we found this person, often we struggle with the vocabulary. We say, maybe not that exciting, or maybe not sexy, or a bit boring. But really what we mean is that we've detected in this really quite accomplished person someone who will not be able to make us suffer in the way that we need to suffer in order to feel that love is real. And that's why we reject them. So we are not merely on a quest to be happy. We are on a quest to suffer in ways that feel familiar. And this radically undermines our capacity to find a good partner. Here's another reason why we're going to come unstuck in the field of love. We tend to believe that the more a lover is right for us, the less we're going to have to explain about who we are, how we feel, what upsets us, what we want. We believe, rather as a young child believes of its parent, that a true lover will guess what is in our minds. One of the great errors that human beings make is permanently to feel that other people know what's in their minds without us having said what's in our minds. It's very cumbersome to use words. It's such a bore. And when it comes to love, we have this deep desire that will simply be understood wordlessly. It's touching, it's a beautiful romantic idea, but it also leads to a catastrophic outbreak of sulking. Now, what is sulking? Sulking is an interesting phenomenon. We don't just sulk with anyone. We sulk with people who we feel should understand us, and yet for some reason have decided not to. And that's why we tend to reserve our sulks for people who we love and who we think love us. And they tell us something, they unwittingly will trigger a negative reaction in us, and we'll sulk. And they'll say, what's wrong with you, darling? And we'll say, nothing. And they'll say, but come on, you're upset. And we'll go, no, I'm not. I'm absolutely fine. And it's not true. And we'll go upstairs and we'll shut the door and we won't tell them what's wrong with us. And then they'll knock at the door and they'll say, please, just tell me. And we'll say no, because we want them to read our souls, because we expect that a true lover can understand what we feel and who we are without us speaking. This is a catastrophe for our capacity to form lasting relationships. If you do not explain, you can never be understood. The root...
Okay, let me pause. Okay, I agree with everything you said there. 100% agree with everything. I think if you're going to talk to people about what the problem with their relationship not going the whole 9 yards and not lasting, I don't think that is the problem. I don't think the communication and the expecting people to understand, read our minds and understand. I don't think that's what it causes marriage to fail. I don't even think it's those things that people tell you cause marriage to fail, like sex and money and children. I don't think or not even the children part, just really sex and money. I don't even think that's what causes marriage to fail. I think what causes marriage to fail is poor decisions and a bad connection. That's what causes marriage to fail. Not being on one another's team, being selfish and on your own team, not looking out for your partner, being non-committal, having a lack of foresight, not prioritizing your relationship with your partner, not spending time together, not investing in your relationship. That's what causes marriage to fail. Okay, I think these reasons that people give for, I think he said the marriage not never having a lasting and long-term relationship, I think was the language he used, something like that. I think the reason people use this language or talk about these problems is because they are true. Like, you don't want to be this person that never opens up and tells your partner what is the actual issue. But that's not the reason that marriages don't make it. That's not the reason that marriages don't make it, okay? And that's not the reason you can't find love, okay? There are other issues, okay? And again, I only have a couple things to consult here, okay? I'm trying to convince you, not even to convince. I'm trying to feed you something that resonates with you as truth. And I'm using 4 lampposts to do that. I'm using scripture, I'm using my experience, I'm using the advice and wisdom of those people in my life whom I respect and who I think have great marriages. And I'm using, did I already say my experience? Really just 3 things, okay? Those are the things I'm using. And so if you, and let me just pitch you something. If you're having a hard time finding a partner, which I did, I know what that was like, okay? Your approach to finding a partner might be the problem, okay? Yes, I know we live in a culture that it's hard to find a partner. I tried everything. I tried dating apps, professional matchmaking, approaching people in public, using DMs on social media platforms, not infiltrating, that's a strong word, just becoming friends with different circles outside of my own. I tried every strategy possible for finding a partner, and most of those I do not think work well, okay? What I will tell you works well is this method I have found using social media, but it's not the way you would think. Instead of messaging people that you are interested in directly, who you do not know very well, and who have no character references for you, and have literally zero connection to you, do not know who you are. Instead of doing that, I would suggest, and this is assuming that, of course, all of your friendship circles have not produced a mate for you, your church circles have not produced a mate, your college circles have not produced a mate, your work circles have not produced a mate. All that stuff has not. Maybe that works for you, and that's great. If they don't, I would suggest going on your Facebook friends list, finding people that you know, okay, who you would trust, who you could talk to, all right, and that you trust, and they have a good character and stuff like that. Go through their friends list. Just look for people that they know, because those people are going to be in your geographical area, okay? And something that I would not recommend is, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get married and facilitate a dating relationship and a marriage into your 60s, 80s, or 70s, 80s, 90s. If you are going somewhere where either if you move across the country to find a partner, and you find a partner at college, let's say you move to the middle of some college in California, you found your partner. Your partner is not going to be from where you are, and so you're then in the position of neglecting one side of the family or the other, or neglecting both and starting a new life. Okay. And I would just recommend finding somebody in your geographical area. It's going to make everything easier. Now, sometimes this is not the way it happens. Sometimes people do things other than this. I'm not saying that's bad. My parents found each other through a college that was 2 hours away from both of where they live. My brother is finding the person that he's going to marry in a different country. And so I'm not saying this is how everyone does it. I'm just saying, if I'm talking to you about what I think would make your life easier, this is what I would say. You need to be looking in your geographical area, and you need to, back to what I said, look through the friends list of people you trust, which means that they have a good chance of being in your geographical area if they're on the friends list of a mutual friend you have. And then you need to look through there and find anybody that meets a couple criteria. Uh, Advertises themselves as a good person, a believer in Jesus Christ, looks physically attractive to you, and seems to be open to dating and marriage as far as how she's presenting herself online, okay? Or he's presenting, whatever you are, boy or girl. This works for girls too, by the way. Even if you don't want to be the one to make the first move, which I totally understand, this will work for you, all right? So then you, instead of messaging that person or those people, you'll probably find a lot of them, that you found attractive, that seem to be advertising themselves as followers of Jesus Christ, that seem to be moving towards the goal of marriage and family, and not, pushing that off into the future. As soon as you find those people, instead of messaging them, message your mutual friend and ask them about that person and say, hey, I noticed you're friends with this person. I thought they were super attractive. Wasn't sure if they were dating right now or not, though, and didn't know if you'd have any information on that. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Okay. Your mutual friend is going to do one of two things. Okay. They're probably going to start, you'll probably get some information. You'll probably get some information that you wouldn't otherwise have had you not had access to that mutual friend. So that's number one. That's an awesome thing to have. Number two, and you can make decisions just based on that. Like if you realize, oh, that person actually, they're not really interested in marriage right now, or they're not behaving in such a way that would indicate that. So then okay, that person might not be one that I should go after. And so you have information. And then number two, your friend is also probably going to reach out to that person that you expressed interest in and tell them, okay, that they have a fan. All right. And that is going to be your door in, because your mutual friend is now in the position where they can facilitate a meeting. Okay. And not only can they facilitate a meeting where the person does not have to turn you down to your face should he or not be interested, but also you have a character reference. Okay. You have a character reference. Your friend's not going to recommend you to someone they care about if you're a rough person. All right. And if you're a great person, your friend's going to recommend you to someone they care about. Do you see how this works? Because your mutual friend, in theory, cares to some extent about both parties involved here. So they're out for both. Like I've messaged people before I met my wife. This is how I found my wife. But in the process of finding my wife, I messaged somebody that I grew up with. Her name was Maggie. She wouldn't mind me giving her name. About somebody, I said, hey, I noticed you were friends with this person. I thought they were super attractive. They seem to be advertising themselves in a good way online, but I wasn't sure if they were interested in dating or anything right now. And wanted to ask you that. And she was able to tell me, hey, I really care about you. This is not somebody that I would actually recommend setting you up with. So reputation comes into this too. Okay. Because my mutual friend did not want to recommend somebody to me that did not have a good reputation. Okay. And no offense to this person at all. I'm just saying this prevents so much dysfunction and potential catastrophe in finding a partner that I would just really recommend this idea. Okay. And it also removes the rejection element. So like if you approach someone in public, like let's just say you walk up to somebody in public and you like say, hey, I know this is very forward to me and I don't want to make you uncomfortable in any way, but I just thought you were super attractive and I was wondering if I could have your number or something like that. Or I was wondering if you'd like to go out on a date sometime, just anything like that. If you walk up to somebody and you say that, they are in a really uncomfortable situation because, okay, it's going to flatter them. So that's a good thing that comes out of this. It'll flatter them. Nobody hates to find out that somebody finds them attractive. So they're going to at least be glad on that front, but they might not think you're attractive, man or woman. Okay. And now they're in the awkward situation of having to tell you no in a way that they're probably not going to tell you the exact truth. Okay. So they're probably going to have to use a cop out to kind of shut this conversation down, or they'll give you their number and then they just won't respond because they weren't interested. Okay. Either way, it's not as productive, I think, as removing because you're kind of putting them in an awkward position because you don't know that they found you attractive or not. You're just putting them in the position of answering you and saying yes or no. So there could be a little bit of pressure that comes with that. I think it would be better, again, if in the situation I described where you message a mutual friend asking about them, getting a little bit more information, and your mutual friend, I'm telling you, this has happened a million times. They're going to go to that person and they're going to say, hey, if they actually think it would be a good idea and this would be a good match. They're going to go to that person and say, hey, there's somebody interested in you and this person is awesome. And they're going to just praise you to the skies. Okay. And so I really think this works. All right. And I don't think it's these problems he's talking about. These problems are not what are keeping you from romance. These problems are these are flaws that all humans have. Yes, these are things that you can work on and solve. But this is not what's keeping you from romance. And this is not what's causing your marriage to go in a bad direction. Those things I mentioned before, your approach is what's keeping you from living the way God has designed you to live. That's the problem. Okay. And I've done this. I've been called to marriage and doing things that were totally not helping me get married. All right. And I understand it's sin. It's just sin. And I'm not saying that in some like grave sense. I'm just saying like it's missing the mark. It's missing the mark. The Greek word hamartia in scripture, sin means missing the mark. We miss the mark all the time, for all have hamartiaed and fall short of the glory of God. It's just how the world is. It's just how humanity is. Okay. You're going to miss the mark. But instead of blaming marriage or blaming, there are just no girls today. And I know there are less, I know it's hard, it's becoming harder to find a partner. I'm not denying that, but I'm saying instead of blaming that today, young people, check your approach and try something try different things. If your approach is not working, try a different approach. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over expecting different results. Definition of insanity. Okay. So I hope you've found this encouraging and I hope it's been uplifting to you, and just have hope, man. Like you really can find somebody you can live the way God has called you to live. It's just that you might have the wrong approach to getting there. Or if you're already there, you might have the wrong approach to staying there. Okay? Don't assume marriage is the problem. Don't assume other people are the problem. Figure out what is wrong with your approach and change it. Okay? Blessings. Peace be with you. Thank you so much for listening today. Reach out. Let me know what you thought of this episode through the YouTube comments or a personal message to the podcast, Instagram, or Facebook page. We'd love to hear you there. It'd make us feel super connected to you guys as audience members, and it would make this podcasting system two-way. Thank you so much for listening today. God bless you, and I will talk to you guys next time.